Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Public Safety and Justice Affairs Committee meeting this Tuesday, October 15th. Roll call, please.
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Ms. Conwell. Ms. Conwell is absent at the moment. Mr. Byrne.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Here. There is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller and Council President Jones are in attendance.
Welcome, gentlemen, as always. Public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one, Mr. Josiah.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one person signed in to speak, Mr. Josiah Quarles.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I'd like to start off.
Your name, please.
Josiah Quarles.
Thank you.
I'd like to start off just by apologizing not for the content of what my last comment was before you all, because I stand by that very much. But the emotional output of what that substantively meant, I think was directed to you in a way that wasn't entirely fair. All of these things do not rest at your feet, but the things that do, I do always call upon our representatives to do the ethical, moral, and fiscally responsible thing for the citizens of Cuyahoga County. So my disappointment in the sales tax and the way that happened and the way that that hamstrings our discussions around what this theoretical campus could be as far as funding for programming and things, and tying all of that money directly to capital and infrastructure, I think is very limiting for this body, for the community, and other advocates and organizations who would like to take part in crafting a better future for citizens that have contact with the justice system. I look forward to the presentation and continued discussion, and have invited a few of you and would invite everyone to a conversation on Thursday around the intersections between the criminal legal system and the housing market. So, thank you.
No one else has signed in.
Okay. We have the, in your packets are the minutes of the October 1st meeting. If they're in order, I'll accept the motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Thank you. 2024-0353.
Resolution number 2024-0353, authorizing a contract with Axon Enterprise in the amount not to exceed $20,992,729.28 for state contract purchase of various hardware, software, maintenance, and support used to expedite intelligence gathering and efficiency of response to situations for community safety initiatives.
Good afternoon, council members. Chris Costin, Business Services Manager, Sheriff's Department. Before you is a request for a not-to-exceed contract with Axon Enterprises for various hardware, software, maintenance, and support. The initial term of this contract will be for 5 years and shall renew automatically for 5 additional one-year term for a total of 10 years. There is no penalty to the county for the termination of this contract in accordance with Article 4. Total price is $20,992,729.28. Funding for this contract will be from 3 different funding sources. 36% general fund, or $7,493,623.09. 37% law enforcement discretionary funds, or $7,849,393.52, and 27% jail discretionary funds, or $5,849,000 $649,712.67. Again, this is over a 10-year period. We do have a representative here from Axon as well as the Sheriff's Department to discuss and to answer any questions. We also would like a request for a suspension of rules for second reading adoption. Thank you.
Could you go into exactly what's all involved?
That I will have to have them speak of this.
Good afternoon, Council. Aaron Reese, Chief Deputy for the Sheriff's Department. It covers a number of things, including body cameras, upgrading our current body cameras, the TASER 10, all the software and peripherals that are associated with those items, upgrading the drones that we currently have and have had for years, and it includes implementing a record management system, and a number of other things associated to our evidence storage. The platform we use to store all of our body-worn camera on evidence.com. It includes, I can't recall what's the camera, Fusus. It includes Fusus. It's just ways for us to store video that we have.
And IT has vetted this and given its approval. So are there any questions? Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, I have a very low-level question. The question is whether this is the long-discussed jail information system, or is this something different?
This is something different. This is not part of the JMS system at all.
Okay, thank you.
That's supposed to be built into the facility itself.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, it's a plug and play right now, right?
This system here?
No. The information system for the jail. We're going to implement it in the existing jail and plug and play it at the new jail, right?
I'm not familiar with the JMS, the current JMS system. I've been part of some of the discussions.
Okay, so this is not part
This
of
is
it.
complete. Yeah, this is separate.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, if everyone's comfortable with moving 2024-0353 to the full council under second reading suspension, I'll accept the motion in a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Against? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
A discussion item, we have an update on the new build county jail.
Good afternoon, Nicole English from Public Works. So we have a short presentation to give, and we have lots of supporting members of our team behind us, so if we have questions, we'll be ready to answer those too. Janine, next slide. Next slide. So this slide, some of you have seen some of these over the last month or two, and then we do have a couple slides that are updated literally a few minutes before I walked in this room, which is why the presentation was a minute to get here. But happy to go into more detail as I go through if you have questions. So this first slide is really just to show you what work has been done from the time we bought the land. I know that's been quiet from the outside, but we've actually been doing a significant amount of work behind the scenes. And so a lot of it is related on this map, which is a little bit crowded. And because we had to consolidate the parcels, right? We bought from one owner, however, it was several parcels, and we needed to consolidate those, and it takes a survey and recorder's office to get that done. So we worked on that. We had to survey the entire property to understand the topography so that we can actually build on it. We had an idea of how big it was, but we needed to have the elevations and accurate information in order to now set our building upon it. Another big thing we looked at is utilities. So the developer, when they first were thinking that they were going to develop this as more of a shopping center, had started some work in related to utilities. So we had plans that had as-built of utilities, some of which got built, some of which never got built. So we had to go through and really reconcile, oh, thanks, Janine. Reconcile what is there, what can be used, what condition is it in, what never was built, what do we need to tear out. So this map is showing you all those different colored lines or different kind of utilities, whether it's water, sewer, electric, what got put in. That took a good amount of time. Also is relating to easements, so understanding what easements are on the property, which ones we needed to maintain across other properties for stormwater flow, access control, those kind of activities. So those were then recorded as well. Looking at the sanitary sewer, when the developer first was putting his plan in, it was, again, a kind of a more shopping center where toilets are flushing here and there. We're having showers taken every single day, toilets flushing nonstop. So we really needed to investigate where that sanitary sewer is going to come off our property and tie into. It is along Granger, and so working with both Garfield Heights and Valley View where the sewer ends up as to how we need to size that and connect into the main line. And then we took several jail tours. Some of you have gone on them with us, and some of your colleagues even, touring to understand best practices of most recent builds and understanding what they're doing and also what they did that they don't like and what's not working so that we can learn from the most recent build that was out there. So learning about best practices, not just on the tours, we've also had several conversations after the fact with groups of people, specifically on Davidson County. Franklin County has helped us significantly taking calls and different meetings so that we can really get to the bottom of what they are doing in their locations. So just a reminder of the program objectives. These are the same, maybe a couple words here and there have been modified, but essentially these are the same objectives that we've had since the Justice Center Steering Committee was around. So this is going on 4 or 5 years now. And so just a reminder that this is what we started with our consulting team to sort of level set us with our program objectives. The bottom pictures are mostly from Franklin County, just kind of some imagery that are things we strive to. Light, openness, the big Sally port in the middle. So these are some image pictures that we're hoping our building will look similar to. We've also set out to do a significant amount of community engagement. Laurel Diaz has been coordinating much of this on her side, and so it's meeting with groups that interact with the jail, work in the jail, have members who have lived experience in the jail, and so really trying to learn from them through these public engagement sessions that we've had. What's working, what's not working in the jail, how could we serve you better in a new facility? And so a lot of the information that's coming back has been around the themes of diversion, enhanced programming, and sort of what does reentry mean to them and what could we do better on that space. And so the good news about this is this community engagement is not going to wait until the new jail opens. The feedback from this community engagement is starting now to feed into kind of some new practices happening in the current jail. So the next thing we did through most of the summer has been these schematic design workshops. So you'll see in blue are the subjects that they're divided into loosely. Some of the things fit into more than one category perhaps, but our design team has been coming in on a cadence of every other week to meet with us for 2 days. Typically we had a 3-day session, but in general they're 2-day sessions. They're coming back tomorrow for the next workshop. And so these are the categories that we focused on. And so when we stopped programming with DLR, we had a program that was on a spreadsheet. HOK we hired to be our criteria architect. They took that programming spreadsheet and verified it. We had a new sheriff. We had some other new staff. So we worked on verifying, is that program still what we need? It was also developed like kind of in the middle of COVID. So now what have we learned from COVID? We modified that a little bit. So we've taken the spreadsheet program to sort of a blocking and stacking diagram. So every time they come into town, we're meeting in more detail on those subjects. So the next phase was the blocking and stacking. Now we're actually to the point where we're starting to see floor plans on some of the topics that we're on. So we've started to look at what does the floor plan of a housing unit look like. And so how do those all now fit together in the building? So every time they meet, we're going a little bit further along on the architecture side. Just to give you a sense of where we are in the design schedule, schematic design started in May. And so that will go through about February. We've finished workshops 1 through 8, like I talked about. Workshop 9 starts tomorrow. And then once we get to February, we'll have our first actual cost estimate on the project that will come from the design build team and the criteria architect. They will both do a separate cost estimate, and then we'll compare and make sure that we're all on the same page. So that would be our first shot at the actual cost estimate on the building we're designing. And so then we will move into, from that, when we feel comfortable with that cost, move into design development. And design development is targeted right now from February to July. We are hoping to push that up to around June so that we would be able to present to you the guaranteed maximum price in June so that we could hopefully get through that before a council recess would be in August or so. So we're looking to cover that before the break, and so that we can then increase the GMP contract and move forward on that contract with Gilbane. So the site plan, I think this is what everybody's interested in seeing. So this has changed slightly from the ones that a couple of you have seen over the last few weeks. So you might see the building is shortened up a touch, but I'll walk through kind of one by one. It's hard without a laser pointer, but I'll do what I can. The main entrance is still on Transportation across from the 480 exit and entrance ramp. So that's where we see the public coming in. Also, staff could come in there. However, the entrance and exit on Granger Road is also a secure staff and loading, delivery, transport, entrance and exit from Granger as well. But the main public parking is down there in 13, 14, and 15. So that's where the public would come and drop or park if they wanted to come into the facility. The number, I guess I'll go one by one, that might be easiest. So the number one is the Community Resource and Release Program. So our idea there is, for those of you who went to Franklin County, we saw that their reentry space, kind of a similar model where you bring services into this reentry space. So upon exiting, anyone who was in our facility could get in contact with different services that they might need. So this could be job services, this could be SNAP benefits, this could be medical, kind of making sure that we can serve them and help them on their way out. The other thing with that center is that it could be accessed from the public. So if you had somebody in your family that was in the jail and you needed more information, you'd be able to come here, and this would be a place that you could get your answers to all your questions. Number two is the entry place in the lobby. So that's where anybody who's coming from the public side would enter the building. Everybody would pass through security entrance and then proceed on their way, whether they were going to the jail for, say, visitation or an attorney visit, or if they were headed to the sheriff's building, that they had a meeting with the sheriff or needed to get their CCW license or whatever they might need to be doing over the sheriff's side. So everybody is coming in through that one public entry point in two. Number three is the BCC, which is the Behavioral Care Center. Again, those of you who were with us in Nashville saw the model of a behavioral care center, which is in secure beds, so they still count as secure beds in the jail. However, the idea is that those with mental health or substance abuse issues, where that's primarily driving the crime that they were picked up for, could possibly be put into the behavioral care center instead of being in the actual jail. And then the idea is that there would be an opportunity, possibly through the judge, that if they complete their treatment, that the charges could be dropped. So we're working through the logistics of how this could work, but we do see that this is a benefit, and we have plenty of folks in our current jail that could benefit from such a solution. Number four are all the housing units. So they somewhat go up and down on the site. They look out to the west and the east along a central corridor that's would be in the middle of sort of where the fours are. And so that gives us a good opportunity for light and air on either side, especially on the west side, where you're looking over a significant drop in elevation. So we don't have concerns over who the inmates can see if they're looking out, or who can look into them, because nobody can really see up from that angle. So giving us really good light and sound and views and air from those housing units. Number five is just the CUP. That's the central utility plant, so that's just all things utility. Number six is our grass underfoot opportunity. So we saw in Grafton, which is a prison, but we think we can pull some of this information back to us and use it in the jail, is the opportunity to provide grass under feet. This is not in every housing unit. This would be somewhere that inmates would get walked to. But the idea is providing some form of outside, literally grass under their feet, Could there be a little bit of a walking path in there, some exercise equipment, the idea of being able to get outside for some of the folks that are in the jail. Number 7 is the Sally Port. So like I said, coming off Granger, they would come down that driveway and into the Sally Port. So that would be all transport to and from court. Any of the police officers that are bringing folks to the facility would come through 7. And so that's a large-sized Sally Port similar to Franklin County, where vehicles drive in one way, drive out the other way, so very easily accessible. Number 8 is where the sheriff's admin building is. You'll see some stacking on another slide, but that is intended to be a little bit of a taller tower, so 3-4 stories. We're still working out the exact square footage on the sheriff's building, but the sheriff's building would be on 8, so that's sort of the prominent corner as you come in, that when you drive down the driveway, what you're really going to see is that sheriff's building, which I think is what we want kind of to be the more icon of the facility. Number 9 is the entry plaza in our intended RTA stop. So right now, RTA stops are at number 17 that you can see on Transportation and Granger. We've been in talks with RTA. We've had 2 meetings with them so far about pulling into the site and actually dropping off right at our entry and picking up right at our entry. And so our intention is that would happen in number 9. Number 10 is just the loading dock. So those deliveries would come off the back entry there and keeping separate from any other traffic. 11 and 12 are staff parking. What's covering up 12 are solar panels. So I assume everyone knows that we got a significant grant from the EPA for solar panels. And so we have designated about 200,000 square feet of solar panels that would be covered by the grant, the EPA grant. So that's kind of a win-win. We get free solar panels here. And in addition, we get covered parking for the sheriff's vehicle and staff. So keeping the elements off of the vehicles. And the good part is, too, the canopy that the solar panels go on, we're able to get 30 to 40% of tax credits to pay that back. So, again, we don't have as much of a cost onto the project to pay for that. 13, we went through the visitor parking, and then future parking and future expansion. You can see the grass areas kind of by flanking transportation where you first come in. That's about 3.5 acres, which is left undisturbed right now, and then about 6 acres to the north. And we're looking at for the north side would be if we needed future expansion. We do have to reserve some land for that possibility. We're hopeful we would never get there, but if we did need it, there is opportunity up there to the north. So in the meantime, we're talking about, is there opportunities for an urban forestry? Is there urban farming that could happen that maybe through a partner agency that this land could be used in a way and also provide some screening to what's going on around it. The black fence list shown around it is just not a barbed wire secure fence, but more of a fence that would be to deter folks if you just happen to be walking by and didn't know where you were, you're not walking onto the campus, enough to deter people from walking on, but that is not our security measure that we're counting on for the facility. The other piece to point out is the basins that are listed. I think it's a north basin and maybe a west basin. My eyes are really bad right now. But those were done by the developer initially when he was setting out his development. And we happen to be pretty close to their impervious area. And so we're able to take advantage of those basins that have already been built. So that's kind of a cost savings on our end. We would have had to put them somewhere or build basins. You have to retain water if you are putting an impervious area where it used to be pervious. So those are something we're taking advantage of that were already there. The football field is not intended to be, we're not building a football field. That's really just for purposes of scale. So we can understand kind of how long we're getting. The building has gotten to about 3.5 football fields long. And so that was getting significantly longer if we had less stories. And so we did talk through many workshops ago, sort of that height issue. Where do we want to be? What is the sweet spot? We know we wanted to be low. That's what we were always talking about with buying more land. But the thought was, if you go further out, how far of that distance do you have to get for an emergency or when you get a medical call or to travel for food? And so as a group, our core team, which included the sheriff's staff too, who works in the facility, decided that going up that one more story was more advantageous than spreading out further. And so that's a decision that was made during one of the workshops. So we also, in order to help that situation, is we've placed similar and the more needy inmates on the lower floor. So the very first floor is intake housing, so the people who are first coming in and out, so there's not much movement. The second floor is medical. So medical and mental health, where also the infirmary would be. So again, less movement on those lower floors, and then it would go up to general population on the third and the fourth floor. The fourth floor is not full. We don't need that many housing units, so it's not as many housing units as the other floors, but the fourth floor does have some housing units on it. This just gives you a sense of scale on height and where the floors are. So like I was saying, you can see on the housing units, there is kind of notched out because we don't need those extra housing units to make a full fourth floor. So you'll see how that lays out. The sheriff's building kind of on the front end, again, looking at 3-4 stories, depending where the square footage lays out. The front lobby and then the BCC being on the second floor above that. Then you can see first floor on the Sally Port and the Cup, those facilities back there. And then this is just a vision of a typical housing unit. Don't get too set. We aren't quite to this level, but just to level set, I think, on making sure that we still understand what our vision is for rec on every housing unit. That's what that space is in the far distance. The idea is that off of every day room, there would still be a rec facility where they can go out. Whenever anyone's in a day room, they could be in the rec area as long as it's not raining in or something. But the idea is open, light, even having the ability to have fresh air. And then I think there was some questions from some of your colleagues who we met with on what does the mezzanine level, how does this work? So this is just giving you a sense of where there'd be a mezzanine. This is kind of how the 2-story housing units would look, that there is a mezzanine level of housing, but all the other functions are on the housing unit. So we're still really focused on, that's a view from the day room out. So this is not our rendering of our particular new jail, but this is the driving sort of the vision of what we have. We haven't gotten to this point yet on ours, but just to make everyone aware, we still have the function of everything coming to the housing unit. So really focused on being able to bring medical where we can to the housing unit. So if there was just somebody had gotten a cut or they have a cold, or being able to bring that medical to them instead of moving the inmates throughout the jail. So it's safety is better and operational savings, that you don't need COs to move people all over the jail, bringing programs to the housing unit. So creating multi-purpose rooms on the housing units for these folks to have services in the housing units. So we're really looking to do everything as much as we can on the housing units to ensure that everybody who's in there is getting the services that they need, that maybe they're having trouble getting to today. Also, several video visitation booths, which would be in the housing units as well. So being able to have video visit when they want, being able to meet with attorneys over virtual while they're in their housing units too. So just really making sure people have access to their needs. That is all I have on my presentation. That was my quick run through of an update. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about anything in more detail.
Any architects here, we were told?
They are not. They were scheduled to come into town tomorrow for the workshop, so they are not here in person today.
We were told they were going to be here.
They are not here today. We said that we could have them come at the next time.
Well, that's why we kicked it 2 weeks, so that they could be here for us.
They are not here.
Now I'm just learning about that.
My apologies. I thought we said that, but they are not here. You've only got me and the sheriff's team.
Many of my questions were for them.
Okay.
Starting with the 4 floors. And I talked to you about that. You want to go through that again? Because as you know, I sat on that committee in two stories, or 2 over 2 as they call it.
Yep.
On a, as they call it, is it a pedestal or a platform?
Or a podium, yeah.
Podium.
Mm-hmm.
Was what we were going to do on 40 acres. We now have 70 acres, and we're going to 4 stories.
Correct. So once we started working on the actual program and getting into how big these housing units were going to be and laying them out, we had a decision to make. And the question was, do you want to go longer or do you want to go up? And so they presented us both schemes. And the architects, which I'll let them speak for themselves when they come next, but they also recommended going up with modern elevator systems, with us placing the elevator systems in the core. And so the access when they go up to get to all the different housing units is better. And then also just working with the team on saying, would you rather walk, 4 football fields if you had to get in, or would you rather stick to 3 and be able to depend on stairs and elevators. And so that decision was made by the group, I mean, really the whole core team, including the architects and our team on the design side and the sheriff's team, that going up that one extra story would be better than going further in length.
Is this best practices or philosophical? See, that was the question I had for the architect.
I think
Because for
it's,
5 years, it's been drilled into our collective skulls that 2 stories was it. It was best practices, it was safer, it was more natural sunlight, and then mysteriously, has building of jails changed as far as, I guess, philosophy?
no, I would say the target has always been low. Like, it's still better to go horizontal. The question is how horizontal. So if you're, depending on how many beds you need, depends if you could be in 2 stories or more stories. So I will tell you, they came to us and said, we had gone to Raleigh and in our early jail visits, and they've asked, though, they built 2 stories, and they asked them if you could do it differently, what would you do differently? And they said, we walk and we walk and we walk. And it is extremely long and far. And they said they actually see workers' comp claims from people, like, just saying they're walking constantly in the
big's
building.
their
And
jail?
so happy to bring some of these
How many
anecdotal
how many-
stories.
Is it apples to apples? How many beds does Raleigh have?
I don't know exactly, but we could ask
That
them.
would kind of make
Yeah.
a difference.
Yep. But again, just how long you're going versus how tall you're going. So, I mean, we looked at the different options and both could fit on the site. I think if we were in transport, they said, now we didn't lay it out on transport, the initial site we looked at, but they said they likely think we would probably have been about 6 levels to fit.
I never heard that.
The architects now, once they have
The architects
defined
now.
our
See, that's why I
program.
had questions for the architects now, because I don't think they were really in tune with what we were dealing with before, that everybody in the justice system in Cuyahoga County, elected officials, non-elected officials, even the city of Cleveland, while they were there, I don't know, but they were there, we all agreed on that. And I never heard, I heard the pedestal 2, whereas 2 is 2 over 2 as they
right.
call it, was going on 40 acres. And now we have 70 acres and we're going up. It just, it raises a red flag. And that's a question I had for the architects. Why buy 70 acres when we were ready to go on 40? And why go up when going out is the safest, best practices way? That's what they said then.
They think there's a sweet spot and it's closer to where we're at than going further. So I'll let them speak
Yeah,
to you, but that's, I mean, the guidance we got, and then also working with the team on the people who work in the jail every day and what their preference would be based on the distances that they were seeing. So it was it was a group effort led by the architect, I'll tell you.
Well, the group effort has left us, as we sit today, $90 million in excess of the cost of this building because of foot dragging. And I don't know if it's in any individual, but we were ready to go almost 2 years ago on 2 levels, on a pedestal, on 40 acres.
I don't think we would have ended up on 2 levels. I mean, based on now that we had a program on a spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet then has to get into blocking diagrams, and you have to actually lay it out and see how many people you can fit in each housing unit, what types you have. So once you get to that and start laying it out, I mean, I was up here saying I thought we could do it on transport. We could do it on 4 levels on transport. As I went back and looked at our old presentations, and we said 3 on Garfield. And now, based on the size and what we need, I think we would have probably been at 6. Now, we would have also been at a garage because we couldn't have parked cars on the surface.
right.
So that would have come with different costs. So, I mean, there would have been some trading. We don't have a garage on this site. We have flat parking, which is significantly cheaper.
Yeah, but
So
covered.
we're able to do that, covered, right?
Which is okay. I mean, that's good.
Right. So I think we know more than we knew 2 years ago. I would argue that we weren't exactly ready to go 2 years ago. We had a program. That doesn't mean you can just put a shovel in the ground and build it from there. So there was work to be done. And once you start actually looking at the stacking and the blocking, you see how big these units have to be.
Well, I would respectfully disagree. And time is money, as I said. I believe on the second meeting, about 5 years ago, time is money, and nobody seemed to care. And I'm not even counting those dollars. If I
Agreed.
counted those dollars from foot dragging, and that was on us collectively back then, nobody really caring about it. We're probably about 150 million, probably higher, but I'll be kind and say 150 million.
Yep.
And here, we're not going to lock in till June, July, or August now.
Correct.
You know, we got to get moving here. And you know, and I had questions for our architects, so anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up, Mr. Chair, about how difficult it is to sit here and listen now after it was drilled in our head for years, how important it was to have 2 stories at most, possibly 3 at most. And now I'm hearing there's a sweet spot at this level. So I just want to let you know it's difficult for me to sit here and believe what I hear from you, because for years the sweet spot was 2. And all of a sudden now you've learned more. Well, why, after years and years of presenting to us and doing research and having a more expansive team that included the prosecutors, the public defender, included us, the sheriff, all different partners, came to the conclusion that it was important because of safety, in particular, running downstairs in a fire, crowding elevators. And now we sit here, and all of a sudden, 9 months later, the sweet spot's 4. You know, to have credibility before us, it's important to be consistent. And we have a change of administration. I assume that's why. So
No, I don't think so.
I don't. Well, what is the answer?
I'd say the architects. I mean, we've developed the program further. The architects talked it through to us. I mean, they presented a plan of both, and we made the decision with the folks that were in the room at the time are the same people that were in the room 2-3 years ago. So I would just tell you, they gave us more information. They explained it to us. They said, here's the options that you have, and this is the choice that we made as a group. So,
okay, I'm just saying, from my perspective, the credibility is really, it's difficult to have any substance with me. Urban farming, the average length of stay at a pretrial facility is what?
30 days or so. The intent was not necessarily where I said the open area could be urban farming, not for the inmates necessarily. There could be partnerships with folks that do urban farming just to use the land in the meantime. So we weren't
bought
intentionally.
70 acres to let other folks come in and do urban
We have
farming?
to have room for future expansion. I mean, that is a requirement that we have. So that north side space is being held for future expansion. So then the question is, what could you do in the meantime with it if you ever need it? So it's just an idea that could be used out there.
Chicken farms?
I don't know about
Track
chickens,
running?
but
Okay, you know, it's.
yeah.
We don't need all this land, and it's whatever. And reentry, why do we need a brand-new building to provide services to the people who are inhabiting a pretrial facility now? You don't need a building to have pretrial, these kinds of services. Why are we waiting, and all of a sudden, we have to wait for a new jail to be built to have reentry services? It's an office. It's a place to go after they leave after 30 to 60 days.
So
Why hasn't this been I mean, it makes no sense to me that we have to wait, 5 years to have reentry services at a pretrial facility?
Well, that's where I'll talk to some of those meetings. Things are happening now. I'll refer to the sheriff's team on what they're doing now, because I don't think they're waiting on reentry. But just to explain the space, we saw in Franklin County that the model is really, as they're coming out, that you are able to capture them on, do you have health issues that you need addressed?
Yeah, Nicole, I heard you say that,
Okay.
but you could do that now.
Yeah,
right? When you get released, my clients, when I did public defense work, they get released and
I agree.
They're provided with all the services. So this is perplexing to me that it seems this is what part of the sale promotion for new jails, because we'll have these pretrial services when we have them now. So I don't know what's different, and I keep hearing it. We're going to have pretrial services. Well, because we have a new building, a pretrial service isn't important to have a brick and mortar. It's people sitting there to meet with the people who are leaving. So I don't, that there's no credibility with that either, for me.
Mr. Chairman. So this is a little bit different than the last presentation I saw.
Correct.
Is this now all county?
Correct.
There's no outside agencies being considered in this property?
No, except for, we do anticipate Cleveland's inmates are here just like their agreement today, and so there is some function of their court being able to video court in the facility. Yep.
Mr. Chairman. I have to say the same thing that my colleague, Ms. Simon, was saying. I've been getting asked by my constituents for months about how much money it's going to cost to transport the prisoners back and forth, and I've been telling them that, well, the consultants say that you need space so that you can build a low-rise facility, and that it's more economical and it's easier to manage, and you don't need as many people, and you save $10 for every dollar that you would spend on the transportation. But now we have a 4-floor design, and I just have a hard time with that.
I mean, I would argue you have 11 stories today, so 4 is significantly better than that. And this is where we got. So, I mean, happy to bring the architects here the next time to talk through why they thought this was a recommendation from them, and why we came to the conclusion. But that was sort of a group decision that was made on function.
My other question, since my good colleague brought it up, is about the city of Cleveland, and I certainly hope this issue is resolved long before then. But if we still have the same jail contract, it's got to end with the current facility, and we got to renegotiate an entirely new contract, I mean, I think we could tell Cleveland that we've got enough on our plate to handle our own, and if they're not willing to give us a fair deal that covers our costs, fair is fair, and it's got to change.
I'm handling the building side, but these folks, I'm sure, are all very focused on that jail contract.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is the same as my colleagues around the change from 2 floors to 4. You mentioned that in the discussions that maybe you were given 2 options. Bring us into the room. Help us to understand, when you saw the 2, what was the administration's reason for saying we want to go from 2 floors to 4?
I would say the length. Just real quick, I did go back and look at what we presented when we bought the property, and we presented 3 levels on this site. So it was 4 on Transport, 3 on Garfield. So I think we're talking about from 3 to 4 is where we've gone to. But we presented 2, they presented us 2 options, one that would go 3 stories and how long that would get on the site. And so we would have been pushing to the north further, and the distances that we were looking at. And so they gave us distances and response times that it would take to get there, from the core and from the jail administration side. And then looking at, if you went up 1 more story, what that would mean, and which housing units would go on which floors, and would this be acceptable? Does this make sense that this population could be on a story above the 3rd floor? And honestly, we talked through it. I mean, we said, I was there. I said, we said lower is better. And they walked through us why, with modern elevators, how they're operating, it'll be not anywhere near what we have today, where they're going to place the different housing units, where they place the food service and laundry so that it's accessible and easy to get up and out. Everybody was fairly convinced that that was a better alternative. So it was, like I said, there was probably 15 people in the room, from Public Works side, from the sheriff's side, from the executives team, and we made the decision as a whole. So.
Talk about, obviously, when we've had litigation issues, there many times the conversation is, let's see the film, or let's see what was on tape, and many times there's no tape. There are blind spots in our facility. We certainly have tried to address them over the years. With this change of floors, or regardless of the change in floors, are we still on pace to create a facility that will have 0 blind spots?
Correct. Yes. I mean, that's the intent of building a new jail, so that is what they'll look at. So we aren't there yet because we don't have every little room squared away, but they will run an analysis of the cameras, where they place all the cameras, and making sure that you can see every piece of the facility. So that will be done.
And now with all the building space that you've already site designed, is it all dedicated to this point, or is there any square footage in the building that is left open for future use?
Not in the building. I'd say everything in the building is targeted for something, whether it be, I mean, there is like in the
I
sheriff's.
don't mean the future site development, but I mean.
Right, inside the
within
building. No, I mean, it
physical
all
buildings.
pretty much has what it's designated for. The only thing I'd say is you might, when we're doing the sheriff's admin, they might say, and I'm just using them as an example, fiscal has 9 people today, but we think in the next 10 years we might have 12. So we've built a couple extra cubicles in their space. That would be future space that we're building that maybe isn't going to be used on day one. But as far as extra big spaces, no, there's not extra. I mean, we're building to the program that we've designed.
Thank you.
I see the renderings for 4 over the 2. Do we have renderings for the 2?
2, we never had 2, so we always had 3.
Okay, 3. Do we have renderings for that?
Not right here. I can go back from the workshop that we were at where they did present us. I mean, it was early on, so it's not as developed as these, but I can get you those.
And not that this is your call, but are you noticing the theme up here?
Yes.
Yeah. You're always talking about we and we and we. I guess we're not part of the we?
Well,
Oh,
I mean, we did a lot of work. We offered in the summer to meet with some of you. Some of you did take us up on a meeting that we showed where we were to date. And then over the last, I'd say 2-3 months is where we got to this point. And so now, prior to this meeting, we also met with most of you in order to take your comments. Also, when we went on the tours, we've listened to all of your colleagues. So we do feel like we've been trying to be inclusive. I will say there was a lot of time where we were doing background work. Some of those early slides, there wasn't a lot of excitement to show. I mean, I think our early meetings in the summer, there wasn't much meat to show. And so we felt like now we've been at a time where there's actually some work that we can show that's meaningful.
well, I mean, again, I guess this comes down to, again, not your call, but the previous administration, we were all in the room. Everybody was in the room. And in the end, as goofy as it got, and as twisted as some people were in there, we came out with an understanding of where we wanted to go. And that seemingly has been balled up and thrown in the garbage. And now the we, which we are not part of, or anybody else that was part of that group, has made a decision. Here's where we're at, and you're clearly hearing we have a problem. And considering time is money, it sounds to me like more money is going out the window with the way this is being run. There was nobody from council in the room with all of these 16 months or whatever of meetings, were there? 18 months.
If you'd like to come to the workshops, more than welcome. I mean, we're doing our
Well, I'll
work,
tell
I
you
guess,
what,
the
I don't
design
think-
work.
I don't
so-
think we're getting anywhere here. We're not
Sounds
happy.
good.
I'm not happy. The architects were supposed to be here. They're not here. What you presented is disappointing. I understand you got a job to do, and I understand we've got a goal to get to, and we would like to get to that goal sooner than later. And I would have had more questions, not for you, but for the architects, so you're kind of taking the brunt of it. But I don't know where we go from here. I think Council President is going to have to meet with the executive and figure out a go-forward plan, because this go-forward plan, not entirely. I mean, overall, not a bad idea, but our goal should be to build the jail and the administration for the sheriff and the things that they need to do their job. And all the ancillary things, the bells and whistles, the cupcakes and popcorn, that can come later. We've got a job to do. And again, as crazy as that committee was, we did our job and came to a conclusion and an understanding of where we all wanted to be, at least with the building. and that has been changed. So we're going to have to struggle through this and figure out where we want to go from here. Because short of not talking to the people that you were talking to, again, because we weren't there, I was hopeful that I was told they were going to be here. I was hopeful to have more of an idea of where they got to the 4.
Sure.
You can't convey that to me. I want to hear it from them.
I've tried, but I'm not successful. So I'll bring them here.
No, they
But I
weren't-
would just say, as far as
and-
that bells and whistles, we feel like that site plan that we've showed you, I mean, honestly, is all the same stuff that was in the DLR program, to be honest. So I'd be curious what other things, I mean, besides what's on the land around it, which is not, it's just an idea of what could go there while it's a placeholder. Everything in the building was on that original program. So I just want to clarify that piece.
The shooting range,
There's no shooting range on the site.
not on this site, but on previous sites, that's what we wanted. How does the sheriff do his job without a shooting range?
Like he does today, where he has contracts. And he also has looked at, we're looking at the training center that he would like, which would have a significant amount of virtual reality, which they said that they are going to. I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but that they can do a lot of that work through virtual reality.
Well, I built a shooting range. We did out in Strongsville. And it's very important to our police officers to have that because they have to qualify and be sharp. And we've got a heck of a lot more deputy sheriffs than Strongsville has officers. And they have something like that where they've got to go somewhere to do their job, to be justified in their job and be good at their job. Seems to me, with all this land, we should be able to put something there. That would have been something I would have brought up had I been part of the discussions, 16 months ago, and been given an idea of why or why not. But I think there's a lot more here to deal with than
Mr.
just.
Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Dale, do you have a question?
I'll defer.
No, go ahead, and then I'll go after you. Thanks.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, when it's stated that I supported something that I didn't support, I have to correct the record. I did not support the transport road site, and in hindsight, I stand by my position on that. If we only had 40 acres instead of 72, the problems that we're discussing now would be even substantially worse.
Correct.
So I just want to make it clear that not everybody in council was in agreement on that plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
When I was talking about the committee, not council.
Okay, well then
Sorry. Ms. Simon.
Yeah, I understood that was a committee, but right, now we have a problem with transportation, which I think is going to be so significant with the overtime and what's required to safely transport the detainees back and forth once, twice, 3, 4 times. And we're going to have a separate, we probably had to have this anyways, mini facility in the courthouse to house the detainees while they're waiting for their court date. So it's going to be, I've never liked the distance. I think it's going to pose a very big problem for the eastern suburbs, East Cleveland. I'm not going to get into it again, but I think this is inherently defective. But who is in the group that made the decision to go from, I guess you said 3 to 4, right? You said is it a workshop the sheriffs
it's a
were in,
workshop.
or-
So I can get you who was actually in that group, that exact one. But in general, the core group is myself, Associate Warden Christopher, Lieutenant Jenke, Major Peters, Laurel Diaz, Debbie Berry, and then I can look at who else was in the room at that time. But that's kind of our core group that's been pretty much at all the workshops.
So basically,
discussing
it's the
this.
administration
I mean, the sheriff's office folks.
and the sheriff, which, okay.
Yeah, 3 of them.
And is you're presuming the city of Cleveland's coming in the jail? Why are you making that assumption?
We have a current jail contract, and they are in now, and that we are building it, assuming they're coming in and talking to them.
So the administration has already decided that somehow the contract, which is inherently and just abysmally problematic to the county, That somehow we're going to have a new contract for the new jail and we're building with that assumption in mind?
I'll let them speak to that. I would just say it's about 100 beds in the facility, and so we are including the 100 beds in the facility as we design it.
How many beds, and I'm sorry if you said this, are you planning on this rendition you just showed us?
1908 is in our current program.
And that includes 100 for
100
Cleveland?
for Cleveland. 100 is what they're using right now for inmates, so yes, about 100 of those are, I mean, we're using current counts as our model. So current counts in the jail.
So there's been some decision made someplace at
To use
some
the current
point
count.
that Cleveland's coming in. And who would those decision makers be?
I would just say we've been told to use the current count in the jail as a model, so I don't know who wants to say they made that exact decision.
Who
at
told you
Cleveland.
that? Who, when you said we're told?
It's been since the Justice Center Steering Committee was around, that has been our model as to what we're using to judge how many beds we're building. in the
No,
future.
no, it's always been a question about whether Cleveland was coming. Well, the bed count's different. So now we're going to
that's what
have
we're-
random 100 beds, which may or may not be used by Cleveland?
No, it's not designated to Cleveland. I'm just saying we're building 1908.
I see.
About 100 is what Cleveland takes up. They are
Okay.
dispersed throughout the facility.
Okay.
They're not
Part of the
special unit.
1,600 average?
Correct.
Okay.
Because you build to 85, to occupy
I gotcha.
85%, so it's
But
about
I guess what I'm
16,
hearing
15.
today is the first time I've heard that we're making decisions on the assumption that Cleveland's coming in. That's new to me. I don't know about my colleagues, if you've heard a definitive yes on that. In terms of Garfield, thank you for asking that, colleague Kelly. So Garfield Heights, we're not building anything for them.
They're not in the current program,
That's
nope.
done, right? Even though there was, I don't know if it's a workshop or one of the partnered meetings you had 2 weeks ago where somebody brought that up and the administration said, yeah, that we're still considering that.
They were considering it is off the site plan right now.
So 2 weeks ago it was being considered and now it's gone.
I don't know, 2 weeks, but yes, I mean,
Okay.
the plans that we
2 to
showed,
3.
some of your colleagues did have an
Well, there was a
idea.
meeting after that, after I said rip the memo up. There was a meeting subsequent to that where there was this, somebody in the partner audience asked about Garfield, and the answer from the administration was that's still under consideration. It's up to council. Were you there?
I don't believe so, but I,
You don't believe that? Was
no,
that?
I don't believe I was there.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I
Okay.
don't recall that meeting
Okay.
after the council meeting, but it's not in the program as it's shown.
Is it going back in?
No, that's not,
It's
not
done.
to my knowledge.
Okay, okay. Listen, I know you're at the mic, Nicole, and you're doing your best, and I appreciate that and understand as well. And the juvenile courthouse is built over the detention center. And what happened historically there was, it wasn't supposed to be, but when the court was built on top of that detention center, it had to occupy the whole length of that detention center. And that building is so long, the hallways. I don't know how many of you probably haven't been in there, but behind the scenes to go from the judges' chambers, it's horrifying to walk, just really track of just because of the base and the necessity of overlaying the detention center. So I understand that consideration for building this. I want to at least support you on that's valid. And the people that work in the juvenile court back there really have to run track every day. So thanks, Nicole.
No problem.
Was there any discussion when we were doing design on where Cleveland's going to be parking their buses to transport their prisoners to court?
We don't anticipate they'll have separate buses to go to
Why
court.
not?
I mean, I guess we need to talk through that, but I mean, the logistically was we would be running buses to the courthouse.
No,
The
no,
sheriff.
they have a court, and we have a court. Our guys are going to go to court. How are their guys going to get to court?
That's something that the sheriff's department, we have to work out.
Why would
But
the sheriff's department transport Cleveland prisoners?
I could have misspoken, so I'm not in charge of transport, so
Yeah.
I'll let the sheriff's department talk about how transport will work.
Was that
but
discussed when we were planning? I mean, there's
We
gotta
have
be
room for buses in the Sally Port,
for
yes.
Cleveland buses.
for several buses.
Has that been discussed on how they're going to get their people to their court?
That's not my lane, so I will again defer to the
Okay.
sheriff's
You
department.
see the problem that we're having up here. We're thinking a couple shots ahead.
Talk. I mean, I can only do my lane.
But that wasn't discussed when we were designing the building at all?
I mean, bus access, yes, through the Sally Port, that has been discussed,
Okay.
so. whether it's our bus, their bus. I mean, we have room for buses and they can get in and out.
Okay, okay. You didn't get that far, I understand. I think what we'll do, has been disappointing
Sorry for that.
because I thought the architects were going to be here, and you unfortunately had to take it on the chin for them. Was there a screw-up or something? I was told they were going to be here.
I'm not sure. I thought we sat in the room and I said, we'll try to get them here. I don't know that we said they could be here today. They were already scheduled for workshop tomorrow to be in town, so I apologize.
All
I'm
right,
not sure
well,
where that
we'll
came from.
discuss where we're at with the administration and what our thoughts might be through the president. And in 2 weeks, I would anticipate, without delay, the entire squad to be here.
I'll see what I can do.
No.
Well, I'm
no,
on
yeah.
vacation, so
They
it won't
work-
be me, but
No, I understand.
I'll
Mike.
let someone else
we
come.
would expect them to be here in 2 weeks because they were supposed to be here today,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not, and we're not getting anywhere. And poor Nicole's getting beat up here for them. And you know what? If we're going to get to the bottom of what we need answered, we need them here. So I'll anticipate them being here. We pay for them, right? We pay them handsomely.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Mike Dever, Director of Public Works. I will go back and do my best, knowing that you've asked to have them in attendance next week, or in 2 weeks from now. So let me see what I can do, and I'll work with your staff to.
Do you know
make
if they
that
were
happen.
told to be here today?
I wasn't aware that they needed to be here today.
I was
okay?
told that.
Based on the meeting, and I was in that same meeting with you, okay? So I don't recall it as them to be here today, okay?
Okay. Well, we got some things to work through, and I would imagine from the council side, we're going to try and as quickly as possible work through our concerns so this thing can get moving. And I think we can get a lot answered through these architects when they're here. And again, short of them, well, they'll be here in 2 weeks.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
They can accommodate their clients.
Yeah, the last 8 to 10 weeks, we've been having these workshops. So there has been a tremendous amount of activity over the last 8 to 10 weeks. So
We see that.
people are working on the project, trying to
understand.
advance it as quickly as possible.
We don't want to be the problem here, but
Oh,
we're clearly kind of blindsided on some of this stuff. You understand? And a lot of it's good. Don't get me wrong. A lot of it, I absolutely support. But there's some things here that just don't add up, and I would like to find out where we're at with that.
Okay, we'll do our best to be able to accommodate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I think you pointed out the problem is when you said the architect should be responding to the client. Council is part of the clientele. And what's been happening here is council is left out, co-equal branch, decision makers at the end of the day. And for some reason, we don't have a designee on this workshop group. I think that's a really big problem, that we've been excluded from that. And we've waited 2 weeks for this presentation, and then the architect's not here. The red flags are all, council needs to be part of this. We need a designee on this committee that's meeting, how many times have you said already? 15? How many?
Nine separate workshops.
9 separate workshops without council there. And how do you expect this to go smoothly when council's not on this committee? You want to just show up every couple weeks and give us changing plans and expect us to support this at all cost?
Well, a lot of it is subject matter experts sitting within these meetings, talking through the different programmatic needs. So that's where we were, is developing those programmatic needs for the facility.
I understand we were all part of that through the chair when we had a steering committee for years of being, why now is it not appropriate for us to be on this type of planning? Because at the end of the day, we're the ones who are going to ultimately make the decision.
Sure.
So I would ask through the chair, maybe have a council designee at these meetings that can routinely attend and report back to us separately, and then that would enhance these discussions because we don't get much done here, especially without the architect. So that would be my request, and hopefully somebody from the administration, council president, somebody can show up at these meetings.
I've made that request to the president, so I'll
Okay.
leave it to him to decide.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? So I guess we're looking forward to 2 weeks, and we'll try in that period of time, try and get over some of the humps that we hit here and close it up after we get done with the architects, and hopefully we have a congealed plan moving forward that we can all get behind. So we got some answers or questions that need answering, so.
Okay.
2 weeks?
Let me get back with council staff just to make sure I can get them here, okay?
I
Is that all
don't,
right?
I can't think of a reason why they couldn't. I really can't. Other than, that's not election day, hopefully, is it? It's not. 3 weeks. Okay.
Who's
So-
counting?
So we're still under. So hopefully we can have them here and get over all this and then move forward. Okay?
Thank you, Mr.
Everybody
Chairman.
okay with that? All right, thank you, Michael. Anything further?
I do want to, just old business, to
ma'am.
follow up with, the council had asked the prosecutor's office to pursue litigation or mediation arbitration with regard to the Cleveland jail contract, and I'd like to maybe hear back from, nobody's in this room who can speak to that, but that was a request to council in a letter, and I just want to get a status with that, and maybe we can bring the prosecutor's office in to talk about the status.
I know of his wants for us to do that, and I bring it up regularly, and I'm told that they're at the table with Cleveland, and that's been going on now for quite some time. I know other people have met with Cleveland, and they've had good meetings that turned out to be not so good meetings. So I don't know what's going on.
Talk about a runaway train of losing money as every day goes by. This is years and costly in litigation and expense and all of it. And we need to do something. So I don't know if that's
Well, as
asking the prosecutor to come in next meeting as well.
Yeah, as Mr. Miller said, this has got to come to a head. And again, we try to be a good partner. We try and be a good partner with Cleveland. We provide them with an awful lot of things, and we don't get it in kind back. So, but it'll be interesting if we don't have a resolution and we build a new jail. Looks like they're going to have to buy a bus. They're going to have to buy a bus.
They'll buy a bus
That ain't
and
no
get a
kind-
couple transporters.
Yeah, so, okay, well, hopefully we can come to a resolve before that. All right, nothing else? Thank you.